State Representatives Heidi Workman and Thad Claggett. Welcome to Message from the House.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
We have a really big topic today. I'm very excited to touch on it. But first, I want to learn a little bit about both of your backgrounds and your districts and kind of what prompted you to become a lawmaker, things like that. So, Rep. Workman, I will start with you.
Sure. I guess ladies first, right, Chair?
There we go.
So my background is in healthcare. I have 13 years of insurance, healthcare insurance, and then I have some time at the bedside, so both sides of the healthcare spectrum, and I use that to inform a lot of my service decisions in the State House. And I come from Portage County, so I represent the majority of Portage, and it's a pleasure to be here.
That is wonderful. Okay. Rep. Claggett?
So I'm a third-generation business owner. My education background is in the areas of life that I spend a part of my work career and service, I guess. And so I'm a civil engineer and business guy from graduated from Ohio Northern back in the day, and then later in life I went and got my master's in theology. And in that world, I have some interest in this technology phrase, not because I'm a techie. I'm not like a code writer. I don't prefer that type of thing. But because of my background in infrastructure and heavy construction in the industrial sector, I can relate pretty well to what's going on in Ohio and the need that we have in this technology phase, and so that we're in. So it's those things seem to work together.
So you are both the chairman and the vice chairwoman of the Tech and Innovation Committee. So I feel like we have the, spot on two people to come on and talk about. Rep. Claggett, I will start with you. When we talk about this committee, what all does it encompass?
So anything that is in the realm of things that Ohio is dealing with in technology as it relates to the business community and what people wrestle with personally. And so the hot topic of the day would be data centers, right? Everybody's is keyed up about that, and there's some things to know about that. But really, it's anything that is not a specific thing. So it's not aviation, that's a technology, and it's not really healthcare, that's a technology. But anything that is related, computer-based, that is affecting the folks, that's generally things that arrive at our committee.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that a little bit, we're also looking at legislation around digital assets and cryptocurrencies, also the importance of cybersecurity standards and how we are seeing vulnerabilities in some infrastructure. So we're really looking at a vast scope of great opportunity and also, some areas where we need to strengthen our policy decisions around those. So it's a fun committee. We just had our last committee meeting and our gallery was packed.
Yeah.
Absolutely packed. So I almost thought to myself, did I miss the memo here? But I think it really proves that Ohio now is in the game. We're having some really serious conversations, and we're ready to drive forward and make sure that the legislature is best prepared to unleash economic opportunity and make sure those cybersecurity standards are in place.
And I will say, from my own knowledge, I had just started hearing about AI and ChatGPT and all of those things probably within the last year. I'm sure it has been there much, much longer than that. But when we think about artificial intelligence, both of you, what does that mean? Rep. Claggett.
It's a large language model primarily.
Yeah.
So the ability for a chat, GPT or Gronk or so forth, that's been around about 5 years.
Okay.
But in niche areas, and it really hit the market there, a little over a year and a half, 2 years ago. People really started using it and there's 800 million users
Wow.
in chat right now across the world. So it's massive. And so that's just one little area. And so, for instance, one of the things that the folks around Ohio should understand, and as it relates to data centers and so forth, they think of perhaps that type of thing or social media as the nexus, if they will, of what it means to have artificial intelligence and why we need all these data centers. Well, that's really almost the low end of the power of artificial intelligence. At least we're calling it artificial intelligence, okay? There's some terms we could apply to that that are perhaps more descriptive. But really, what we're doing in this phase is, and it relates to what President Trump has been talking about and the summits that they've been having at the White House and beyond. This is the control of the world, quite literally, rests in the computing power and the agentic stuff that is coming on board, meaning that if you have a computer system that can act autonomously, it's an agent, it's not a tool. And if it can do that, then it is capable of doing things that are way beyond what most average Americans can imagine right now. But those of us who have been studying this for a while understand the power of it and the extreme vulnerability of our people. And so we got to work on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly is the new frontier. We're moving into developments that we aren't sure where they go. We are not sure how far they evolve or how to truly prepare for them. In fact, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, we had the definition of AI clarified in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And they said that AI cannot be defined because it has the opportunity and is moving in the direction of controlling language models, being able to write and rewrite language and codes. So how can we define it when it can truly redefine itself? So these are the issues we're dealing with, and they're very important conversations to have.
Yeah, and I think, the next question I will ask is kind of finding the balance of, regulating and not wanting to, slow progress. So how do you go about that? Do you think that it needs to be regulated? Talk me through that, Rep. Claggett.
So again, getting back to President Trump's issue, because I think what the president needs to do and the Congress and so forth, they have a mandate, if you will, to be sure America wins this technology race that we're in. I like to compare it to the Sputnik example and the atomic bomb issue. And you could even throw in the industrialization movement in Americas in the 1900s. Okay, people moving from the agrarian society into the cities. This is way bigger than any of that even imagined they could have dealt with. And atomic bombs that can kill millions of people at one stroke seems like a really big deal.
Yeah.
But we're talking about technology that will absolutely take over every 8 billion people that are on the face of this earth. And they will do it in such a way that if the rogue controllers get a hold of this stuff in the wrong way, you are literally facing the loss of human freedom on a magnitude that is unfathomable. And so the task of the lawmaker here is almost it's just mountainous, because not only is it changing, as Rep. Workman indicated, it is developing at a rate that is unprecedented in human history, and it furthermore it expresses itself in large language models in the conditions of what it looks like to be human. That does not make it human.
Yeah.
And we need to recognize what the differences are and where the choke points are that good regulating law can come along and uphold the justice that is derived in the American court system. That is the nexus of this entire effort that we're working on. It is not enough for us to say the law will take care of it. The law is helpless in the face of bad evidence. And we have completely subverted what evidence is even going to look like in the systems that are coming on board.
Yeah. Seems like a very difficult task, Rep. Workman.
So it is very difficult, but it is also, in my opinion, very exciting.
Yeah.
Because there's so much potential here. I think the great debate is making sure that these developments and these emerging technologies are designed, structured, and have the parameters around their development to ensure that the technology works for us and not the other way around, right? So making sure that the technology is preserving jobs. It is critically important, like Chair Claggett says, to make sure that we're engaged in this dialogue, that we are highly educated in what we're looking at, and also how these developments will impact our economy, our workforce, our education programs. Really, they will touch every industry and revolutionize what those industries do.
I want to ask Rep. Workman, you have proposed House Bill 650, which establishes the Frontier Technologies and Quantum Computing Commission. Why did you introduce that? And why is that important? Kind of talk me through the different elements of this.
Sure. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. What I have found in the last, our year in this committee is that we're addressing such vast concepts that it's hard for us to truly grasp how best to legislate around these. So the intention of House Bill 650, the Frontier Technologies and Quantum Computing Commission, is to dig deeper, study more broadly the scope of not just the definitions of what these things are, but how they're impacting our industries. How can we harness them, right, to put Ohio at the forefront of these developments and also protect the people that sent us here to serve? So that's the great debate today. And I was really excited to see that more and more of our members are engaging in this conversation. We have great legislation that's being put forward. So the final piece is to make sure we fully understand what those frontier technologies are.
And I believe, is data centers included in this? Or will they be?
I hope that they will be,
Okay.
because I think energy really plays into the development of frontier technologies. In fact, it's a cornerstone. So we shall see. But there is another study commission being proposed for data centers alone.
Okay. And even just, what are you hearing from constituents? We talked about AI a little bit. I think data centers also can, fall in the sphere of technology, innovation, things like that. What do you hear from constituents, or what, concerns or excitements do either of you hear about them?
Well, for every nose on the planet, there is an opinion, right? We know that.
Yeah.
And so people react from the condition they're coming from, obviously. But I think the large thing to think about in a macro sense, if you boil all that stuff down, are the fundamentals for their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in safety, right? So whether you have farmland being gobbled up, or you have water issues or energy usage and so forth, their costs are going up. What are we going to do about that? There's a lot of parameters that we need to balance. And so, as the president said, we don't want a moratorium on those type of things. Okay, right? From the winning of the race, that's right. From the protection of the folks, that's our job to help figure that out. We need that input. I think we reasonably understand what the problems are. It's moving at such a pace that we want to be careful we don't, get stuck in the mud here. As we address one issue that is going to change tomorrow, but we're pretty aware of what the challenges are. It reminds me of the ethanol debate from several years ago in the farming community. Right, the great thing was, we're running out of oil. Well, no, we're not, but they thought that we were, and so they want to, start burning corn. Yeah. Well, that didn't work out so well, and so we don't want to overreact in such a way that we create these odd conditions that then we got to dig ourselves out of that. So we're on it. We're watching very carefully, and we're moving it as fast as we dare from a legislative perspective.
Rep. Workman?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that we are at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean in the state of Ohio, I mean nationally and truly globally as well. We're moving into a new era of a technological revolution. We had the Industrial Revolution, and look at, how well that went. What will that technological revolution look like? Where will we be on the other side? And we have to make sure we're at the front end of this conversation to ensure, right, that we are in the place we want to be 10 years from now. So it's a very exciting conversation, and I'm delighted to be involved with Chair Claggett.
Absolutely. I want to go back to kind of Ohio, broadly. How do you think that we're positioning ourselves, as being a leader in this technology, and the balance of still protecting our citizens and, making sure that they have their land, making sure that they have their jobs, things like that?
So I think that the priority here, in the majority of Americans truly just want to be left alone, right? They want to raise their kids and have their privacy and have their comforts. And it's our responsibility to make sure that reality is sound, that reality is protected for them. But in the whole scheme of the technological evolution, we have to accommodate the increasing influence that these technologies have, not just on our daily lives, on our smartphones and on our computers, and the inundation of information coming in from all of these different different platforms, but also just to make sure that we are doing this correctly and putting the policies in place to make sure that our people are safe back home.
Rob Claggett, anything to add?
I'm going to draw an analogy for you that is a little bit from my background. I've talked to people who have served in very remote areas of underdeveloped countries. I've known a lot of those people over my life, some of them being missionaries and that type of environment. And when you have those conversations with people who are, trying to do the things that Rep. Workman was talking about, as far as raising their family and express their faith and, all those type of things that are normal to humanity, the obvious conversation that American would with all of our freedoms would say to that person that's living under a very repressive regime somewhere in the world, how do you survive in that environment? And they always look at us dumbfounded and say, it's easy. We're focused. How do you survive in America with your faith when you have all this stuff that competes for your attention? And that's the astonishment that you get out of that conundrum of the human experience. And so we are entering an era that humanity is going to be tested as they were at Normandy. It's a different test, but nonetheless it's a test. And so I look forward to participating in how we think about that and how we honor the fundamentals, the first things, first principles of life. How do we do that well? And this is precisely the debate in which we are engaged.
And I'm excited for you both to get back into committees and, start hearing testimony and things on that. How do you go about, every committee taking everything in? And it's got to be a lot of studying and a lot of discussion.
It's really interesting because we all sit on multiple committees, but we spend at least the two of us spend most of our time on tech committee because it's invasive to our lives. I work many hours. I work well into the evenings trying to stay up on this stuff, right? And so it is very challenging because most of the other committees we go into, we take our life experience and we basically understand what's being told to us, and we judge A or B on that issue. In tech committee, we're scratching our head the whole time saying, I'm not fully sure I understand this. And if you watch the tape of the last committee where I went and addressed the audience before we even started the committee, I was getting a good laugh from the audience about the questions that I was asking the committee to, do they even understand, right? Some of these technologies, the verbiage that we're using, right? Well, that's it though. I like to compare it to going back to college because college is not an exercise of figuring out how to do a physics formula. Anybody can do that once you understand how to run a formula. The challenge of physics or calculus or differential equations or biology or so forth, it's the language. And the language of the technology of today is a completely new parameter that we've ever faced as a society. And so we're having to learn that in the context of something that is moving so incredibly fast, producing such incredible results, and here it is right in front of us. And so, it's really, really challenging to even understand what we're talking about, never mind try to predict where it's going and set a guardrail that helps our people not get run over by it.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. It's got to be a little fun though to learn about new things.
It's frightening.
Frightening
on one level.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm not scared at all about it.
Yeah.
It's both and. It's this. There's a certain exhilaration to it, yes, but there's also the responsibility that comes with a lawmaker that says, who is sufficient for such things?
Yeah.
We have to understand how these things come about, find out where the abuses can be, and we need to be prepared to protect our folks as best we can from that.
I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. Quickly, I'm going to talk about our social media for folks to follow. You can follow us on the Ohio House GOP Caucus on Facebook, Ohio House _GOP on Instagram, and OHR GOP Caucus on Twitter. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and I will be very excited to be watching these committees either on the Ohio channel or in person as we get back into session. Representative Claggett, Representative Workman, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.